Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Death by Disney podcast. I am your host, Adam, and what I'm trying to do is to watch all Walt Disney's companies' films that they've ever produced. And recently, my son and I were talking about the fact that the movie I'm going to review in a moment, Lilo and Stitch, the live action remake from this year, is the most successful movie this year. It beat out movies like Fantastic Four, Superman, um, even the Minecraft movie, which is surprising. So we were thinking about why, and then I went and watched the first movie, which I hadn't actually seen before. And to be honest, I really, really love that movie. I think you can go and watch my review of that movie, but to boil it down to two main things, I like when Disney does things that are out of the normal for them. So them making what is basically a family sci-fi film is out of not normal for them. And the other thing is I liked the fact that the character of Lilo is uh, you know a real child with a real personality. So today then I'm going to review the 2025 live action remake of Lilo and Stitch, and I'm going to give you my opinion, and then I'm going to interact with some other people's opinions. Uh, it stars Maya Kealoha as Lilo, Sydney Agudong as her sister Nanny, and Chris Sanders reprises his role as Stitch, and he's also the guy who had the idea for the first movie, and he wrote the first movie. So, let's start with my review. What is the rating that I would give this unfortunate piece of trash? I would give it 2 out of 10. And the actual, aggregated rating on IMDb is about 6. I'm going to say why I would give it 2 out of 10 and why that I think that it's trash. So, I actually haven't reviewed for this podcast any of the live action remakes that Disney has done, although I have seen one or two of them before. So, this is the first one, and I think everything is the same about the remake and the live act and the animated film, except the things that are different. And the things that are different, like, I understand that you need to have something new to make people want to watch the film, but the choices that they made are really bad. So there's a classic scene in the first one where uh, Lilo is in a hula practice, and somebody says that she's crazy, and she jumps on them, punches them, pulls their hair, and bites them. And she has a lot of interesting hobbies, let's say. She likes to take pictures of tourists, and she thinks that the fatter they are, the more beautiful they are. And she doesn't actually say that, but you can see by her pictures that's what she thinks, right? And in this one, Lilo basically sneaks into a resort, right? She sneaks into a resort and um, you know, pretends to be a person who is staying at the resort, and that's her quirkiness. She still feeds a peanut butter sandwich to the fish, but there is, in the scene that I previously mentioned, the way that it's redone is that uh, there are a lot more comments between Lilo and the girl that's making fun of her. It goes back and forth, and then she pushes her off of the stage. And also, I don't know why, but it seems to be like this big production, like end of the year production or whatever, and Lilo's sister can't come, and that's why she's angry, you know. And I think that it's just unnecessary motivation for the character, because if you are a little girl or a little boy and you have problems controlling your temper and somebody says that you're crazy, you're gonna react to that, right? And I think that that hits on the main problem with this film, which is Stitch is cute. Yes, he is cute as a live action. Um, he's cute as animated. That's fine. Um, but they've taken the burden of this film. They've taken the heart of the film, which is the interaction between Lilo and her sister Nani, and they just tossed it out the door because Lilo doesn't act like a real person, which is crazy because she is a real person in this. And, it's not that the actress necessarily did a bad job. She didn't. It's just that the character was removed of all of those quirky things. And I understand why to a certain extent. One, as I said, they want to make things different than the way that they did before, and they want, um, it needs to be updated. So in 2002, she had like a Polaroid camera, I guess. So, or she had like a actual camera. So it wouldn't make sense that she was sticking pictures on her walls. It wouldn't make sense like that. And the sci-fi aspects are still there, but it just seems like a retread. And I do, having watched the first movie, I really understand why people went to see this movie and why it was the most successful movie for North Americans, because I think the generation of people who can afford to go to the movies now are the people who grew up with that movie. And it is such a good movie, so I can see why they would want to see it. And as I said, Stitch is really, really cute, but I think the film ultimately fails because Lilo feels like a cardboard character. You know, she doesn't feel like a real person. So I don't really have much trivia to talk about with this one. Um, the film was plagued with a little bit of arson, um, because obviously Hawaii has a lot of productions which come there, and there is this conflict between the locals and people from off the island. And the production did try to offset a lot of the waste and stuff. 80% of what they used was recycled, but then, 20% of it was thrown away on Hawaii, which has limited resources, right? Limited space. So there was that kind of conflict. And it's not actually, yeah, well, I'll talk about that in the negative review that I will read right now in a moment. But I think the other thing that I didn't like about it is how to say this in the most neutral way. They really beat they beat us over the head with the fact that they're in Hawaii. You know, in the beginning, in the first film, it's in Hawaii, and the characters do things that you do in Hawaii. So I imagine in Hawaii, little girls learn to do the hula. That's a thing that's part of their culture, right? So she's going to a class to learn to do the hula, right? Completely normal, I would say. But here she's in the class doing the hula, and then whereas in the first movie there are like a few Hawaiian phrases, then we have like entire sentences in Hawaiian, and then they're translated. So if these two people are Hawaiian, they wouldn't translate those expressions, right? They just say them, which is probably completely normal for Hawaiians to do. I'm not saying that. It's just either put subtitles or like scale back the level of the things that you say in uh, Hawaiian. Um, the Yeah, and there's a scene where um, their their Nani prepares some dinner, and she's like, "Oh, I got the Kaloha burgers you like, or however they're pronounced. Oh, I got this, I got this." So it's like every little detail has to be connected to Hawaii, and you know, I would imagine that there are just because Kauai, I can't even say it, like they're not koala burgers. Some specific type of burger is local to Hawaii doesn't mean that a little girl's favorite burger would be that, right? Especially if she's 6, it might be something else. So I think realistic world building means having bits of local things which make sense and other things which make sense, you know, because like Japanese people don't eat Japanese food all the time. Americans don't eat American food all the time, you know. So that's something that I didn't like. And another thing that I found a little bit, I mean, this is gonna sound like such a stupid thing to dislike, but in the first movie, there is a really big influence of Elvis Presley and his music. And I didn't talk about that in the review of the first movie, but that's something that's really unusual too for Disney movies. Usually, they don't use other people's music. So it made the characters feel real because there are people who love Elvis music. And probably their parents are dead. Their dad or their mom really loved Elvis. So they're looking at the records and stuff that they had. So it's some kind of, it's not even, they don't even directly make this connection, but it's there. So the connection to Elvis is that it's the music that ties them to their parents. So it keeps the memory of their parents alive. And in this movie, there's like a couple of random Elvis songs. So yeah, I didn't like that at all. All right, so now let's focus on what other people think about the movie. And I know I was pretty negative, but I have here 2 negative reviews of the movie. The first one, bet against Disney. Disney is wasting a fortune trying to drag us to see a movie that is stupid, uninteresting, and poorly done. Save your time and money. Avoid this disaster. If there is an afterlife, Walt Disney is there, thinking we used to do such good work, and now a bunch of clowns are producing garbage. This is an unnecessary remake of a relatively minor film. Has America become completely bereft of clever, creative ideas? Perhaps Disney just assumes the movie-going public is so dumb that if we overwhelm them with a never-ending stream of ads and publicity, they will believe it is worth seeing a film. I am sure there will be some sleeper hits this summer, but that Lilo and Stitch will be just the opposite, an expensive failure. A couple of things about that review. I don't think that the person was right. You know, I don't think that people went to see the movie because of all of the ads and publicity it had. I think that they went to see it because Lilo and Stitch is not a minor Disney film. It's a classic. And people wanted to see a good live action version of Lilo and Stitch. And Lilo and Stitch actually makes sense as a live action thing. I think that they failed because they didn't understand the character of Lilo. But it makes sense. Like, it's an alien, it's a sci fi movie, it's fun, there's destruction, it's great. You know, it makes sense why it would be a good movie, but unfortunately, it's not a good movie. Anything else I want to comment on that review? Um, I don't know. I think it's clear that they didn't actually watch the film because why would you go see a live action remake of Lilo and Stitch if you thought it was a minor film. So I don't think that you would. So I don't believe that that person actually saw it. Okay, here's the second negative review. Complete and deliberate insult to the original. Every critique of the tourist industry and every point the original made about families sticking together is not only thrown out the window, but deliberately stomped on. The individuals that made this movie seem to actively despise the themes and messages of the original movie. Even ignoring the source material, the message at the end of this movie is frankly disturbing in its implications. Okay, I don't think that is disturbing in its implications, but I need to explain a little bit of how the plot of the first movie and the plot of the second movie differ. So, the plot of the first movie is Lilo and her sister Nani have been orphaned because their parents died in a car crash. And they have a very difficult relationship because Nani is taking care of her sister while practically being a child herself. She's probably a younger adult, right? So she's 18, 19, and she's taking care of her sister because her parents died. And we don't know how long it's been since they died. It may have been a year, 2 years, 6 years, whatever. So she's been in this position a really long time, and she's not handling it very well. So all of the conflict between them is because of that fact. So it's understandable. In the new version of this movie, none all of that exists, but they've actually added this subplot where, uh, they can't stay together unless Stitch becomes a model citizen of a dog, which is weird. Or actually, that was, I think, in the original. But so they have some conditions that need to be met if, and this is really weird, like give somebody a week to meet these conditions or their sister gets taken away. But yeah, there's like a checklist of conditions that she has to meet so she can stay with her sister. But apart from that, there is this thing where she has a scholarship to go study marine biology, and she can't do that because she's taking care of her sister. And then she had like this whole life where she was a champion surfer, and she can't do that anymore because she's taking care of her sister. So what that comment is hinting at is saying that, like, if you make sacrifices, like, you should put yourself first in that situation and not make sacrifices for your family. And like they are saying, like, basically think about what's best for Lily and not what's best for you. But clearly the message of the film, Lilo, sorry, clearly the message of the film is doing what's best for Nani is also doing what's best for Lilo, which is not actually true. I mean, there is actually, it doesn't end up being that bad because there's a portal gun and Nani can go see her sister whenever she wants. Uh, really long ending to that film as well, which is so dumb. But yeah, I think that I understand again why they added that, because basically they were saying, I think maybe just because the result of a focus group, oh, what is wrong with this story? What would you change if you made it modern? Oh, I would give the sister some ambition and some goals that she has that she can't do because her sister is here. Um, yeah, obviously the thing about the first film is that it's not realistic, because in real life her sister would either have to sacrifice her sister, being with her sister, or sacrificing those things. And you don't need all of that. That not being in the first movie doesn't make it, doesn't even affect anybody, because you're not going to think about it, because it's a movie about the relationship between a young girl and an alien from space who was designed to destroy worlds or whatever, So I think that's the problem with this movie, is that they tried to put everything in it, and you don't need everything because at the center of this story should be Lilo and Stitch, their relationship. So it's Lilo's perspective that matters. And the fact that she argues with her sister is like completely normal. And there's even this great line in the original where they had this argument and then they cry and they like make up and Lilo says, "I like you better as a sister than as a mom." And she's not saying that to be mean. She's just saying that's what happened, right? And then part of the movie in the remake goes to, oh yeah, she's not a mom anymore. She can be a sister, and you know, I think that was pointless. So destructive, maybe not. Pointless, yes. All right. So I have been dumping on this movie for a long time because I really liked the original, and I fell asleep a bunch of times in the remake. So yeah, but I mean, not entirely asleep. My eyes were like, closing, and I was like, I gotta watch this. So then the next thing about the so positive review of the movie. 10 out of 10, as wonderful as the original. Absolutely loved the cartoon, and this one has definitely not disappointed. Love Stitch so much, and seeing him live action makes him even more adorable with all of the original, uh, but bust a gut laughter as the animated one. Lilo is absolutely wonderful here as well, and the actress does a wonderful job of bringing her to life. This movie definitely helped Disney from that disaster they put out called Snow White. As a fan of the original, if you find this one delightful, then you have your priorities. If you don't find this one delightful, you have your priorities messed up. This is an hour and a half of wonderfully acted laughs and a great homage to the original one. Seeing Tia Carrere in a cameo was great, and still having Elvis Presley in the soundtrack is just as wonderful. Um, yeah, it's great that she has a cameo in the film. It's great that there's still a few Elvis songs, but not as much as the original. Um, yeah, I think, though, I don't agree with the positive review, but I think that shows you why it was so popular because people really love Lilo and Stitch, and I understand why. They love the character of it. And, this movie, not the greatest movie, but maybe in the future they'll make a better version. Like, when they have, I don't know, brain holograms or something, they'll make a better version of it for sure. Yeah. So, would I recommend this? No. But what did you think about the movie? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Put your comments in the comment section down below where they belong. Don't write them on the wall, put them in the comment section. Thank you. Bye bye.